We definitely could be witnessing the end of the Netanyahu era, but we also may not be. And I think it's important at this stage that we think about it in that way, because Netanyahu hasn't done as well as he would have hoped. These elections were elections he didn't want. Avigdor Lieberman, who's now the kingmaker, effectively pulled out from his government to trigger the first round of elections and then refused to join his coalition when he did manage to win in April. But now I think it's definitely not looking good for him. That said, he has proven that he's still a smart player when it comes to negotiations for forming a coalition. He managed immediately to get all the other right-wing parties and religious parties to agree to sign a document that says that he will negotiate in coalition talks on their behalf. And that puts him in a slightly stronger position, because that means that effectively he has a bloc of 55 behind him and you need 61 to form the coalition. And if we take every party on face value in their system in Israel, with all of these different smaller parties playing the balance, there's a problem, because so far nobody will sit with somebody, and if you put together all the equation of who people won't sit with, there is no potential to have a solid coalition. And that's why this idea of a unity government's come about. But for that to happen, certain people won't sit with the Arab list parties because they're so extreme. Certain people won't sit with the ultra-Orthodox Jewish parties because they're extreme in a different way. And various people have said they won't sit in a coalition with Benjamin Netanyahu as the Prime Minister, even if they sit with Likud, his party. And that means that someone is going to have to wobble and break their promise, and that will be where we find the coalition. And that could still be Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition. I think that's one of the interesting things about Netanyahu, is that we hear that sort of thing a lot from outside Israel. And then we look inside Israel and he still does very well, which is quite hard for a politician after as long as he's been in power. And I think part of the reason for that is the elections weren't really about occupying territories or about those sorts of issues. He's always been Mr. Security, so sure, that plays a part. But on the other hand, he brought Israel into the OECD. He's brought a certain amount of economic success to the country. He has kept relative peace within the country. He's held very few wars during that time in comparison to Israel's history. He has defended well against the terror threat on several fronts. He stood up against Obama, who for 8 years was a very critical president of the US against Israel. He took Israel through to the Trump administration era, and he's now got very close ties with Trump.
Well,
he's got close ties with Saudi Arabia under the radar, with Egypt, with other countries.
Let's be clear.
The Israelis see that as well. One of the main reasons that there hasn't been a Palestinian state yet has been the continued refusal on the behalf of the Palestinians to form one when they've been offered one at every stage. So I think that this deadlock in that process is one that's caused Israelis to prioritise other things in elections.